Well, my name is Jessa Francis de la Rosa. You'll find me on LinkedIn as Jessica de la Rosa, but I've been Jessa for over 20 years now. But I run two different companies. One of them is a non-alcoholic beverage consultancy called Untoxicated. And it is all about educating on the alcohol-free products on the market today and helping people and businesses specifically understand these products and how to use them, how to elevate their business or their personal life or all of, there's so many different ways to use these products as tools. And we'll get into the story of it, but I've become this non-alcoholic beverage expert kind of by happenstance, but it's something that I love. And it has beautifully wrapped around into my deepest passion, which is really mindfulness. And so I run a company called the Caim Circle. I have a podcast. I run a Substack that talks about both of these things, but the way they touch is there's no mindful drinking without mindful thinking. And within the Caim Circle, the word Caim is a Gaelic word that represents sanctuary and that feeling of being protected and loved and seen. And in this space, I want to provide retreats, workshops, classes of any sort to help people very carefully step into self-awareness, to do the self-inquiry and self-discovery so that they can uncover the limiting beliefs that we have been ingrained with since childhoods. And none of us are free from these limiting beliefs. And all of us are, the biggest thing that I want to bring forth in the world is awareness, whether it's awareness of how much you're drinking or awareness of your thoughts, how you're moving your body, what you want to have or not have in your life. It requires self-inquiry, discovery, awareness of yourself, so that when you show up into the world, you're doing it mindfully. You're doing it with love and not fear. And so they're definitely balancing each other out. They work together hand in hand, even though they are very different. And it's been a beautiful adventure over the last year as I've been doing this.
And let's talk a little bit about let's go specifically with the non-alcoholic beverage consultancy. What was the year that started? And then what was kind of the precipice into that world? Were you always a non-alcoholic consumer, or kind of was there some sort of a pivotal moment in your life? Because it seems like people were always in it, or there was something that drove them into the NA world. So.
Yeah, no, my story is interesting for sure, because it wasn't something that I sought out. I definitely had come to a point in a place in my life where I recognized that I didn't want to drink as much. I had, in 2020, I was in both Scotland and South Korea, and I was drinking copious amounts, dealing with guilt and pain and stress. I had just gone through a divorce. I was separated from my children. There was a lot of mental, emotional pain happening. And I was, like a lot of people, relying on booze to kind of numb out. And especially during 2020, when the world was in chaos and we didn't know what was happening. And when I came back to the States, I actually did I just went to the doctor and wanted to make sure that, I hadn't seen the doctor in a while, and I wanted to make sure things were good. And they were like, your liver is leaking protein. I was like, oh, right. So I need to get a hold of this. And I had never thought of myself as having a problem, but there was that. And with that, I think the universe kind of put me in the place that I went. While I was in Scotland, I was getting my degree in creative writing. I had always just wanted to be a writer, and I thought about, I was starting up a travel blog, and I wanted to do these nature retreats, etc. And while I was trying to do that, I was working TaskRabbit, which is like one of those apps, kind of like DoorDash, but you're just doing these random tasks for people. And I got hired by the beautiful Emily Heinz, who is the founder of Sèchey. And she actually just hired me to paint her living room. And she just hired me as a tasker to come do this random thing for her personally. And while I'm painting this accent wall in her living room, I'm telling her, well, this is my background. I'm prior military, just got my degree, ... And she's like, well, I could really use someone like you. I'm starting up this store. And this was before Sèchey had even opened its doors. And I went in, and next thing I know, I'm her copywriter and her distribution center manager. So I'm doing my writing, and I'm doing distribution, which is what I did in the military. And it didn't take 6 months, and I was the director of brand operations and partnerships for the non-alcoholic bottle shop Sèchey. And it was just, my life just completely altered. And it was just really wild to go from, and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to start up this travel blog, to, oh, okay, well, I'm a director of a full-blown company now that's, doing all these big things. And I, as of, someone who is basically wearing every hat, I was like the director of Sèchey. I got to know every single brand. I was tasting and trying all the different products. I had to learn all of them so I could share them with the customer. I was the one shipping them and receiving them and unpacking them. And then I was the copywriter. I was the one writing all the copy for the website. So
Wow.
all product descriptions were my responsibility. So I learned quickly everything there was to know about every single product on the market, because we carried almost all of them. And what we didn't carry, I had at least tried and sampled. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how I became involved in the non-alcoholic space and how I gained my expertise. And then life, and actually the military life kind of sucked me back in, with my ex-husband still being active duty and us having kids and things like that. I had to come up with something remote. And so that's how the consultancy was born, because I was like, okay, here I am with a brain filled with non-alcoholic information. How's it going to pay my rent? And so I was like, all right, I'm going to start up a consultancy and see where it goes. And before I knew it, I was doing a lot of events. And how do I get involved in events? Well, I'm a yoga teacher and a writer, and I can teach these writing classes and these yoga classes and this other stuff, and bring in the alcohol-free options and make it a non-alcoholic event. And next thing you know, they're all playing together and things are moving.
It's really amazing, because you have I didn't even realize this part, that as we've talked leading up to this, was like you having the distribution aspect of things, because that's my world. So like I'm 20 years in wholesale distribution with distributors and all that stuff. I was the brand manager that sat in the boardroom, chose what brands came into the portfolio, and then managed the sales team that deployed the strategy at the market level to all the licensees in the beer world. And I just I'm blown away right now hearing this, because you do have such a unique, even more so than I've already told you, you have such a unique niche that you understand scale, and you understand managing a portfolio, which is a very, very unique trait. Most people can do one manufacturer and then the SKUs within that manufacturer. But if you can successfully manage a portfolio of multiple cultures, multiple manufacturers, multiple go-to-market strategies, multiple identities of brand, that is incredible.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It really is. especially when I'm doing two different things, and that's just one of them. And when I started off, I didn't realize how much I was kind of biting off. By, my initial portfolio was 14 brands. Wow. Because I wanted something from every category to really truly educate. And that means there's alcohol removed wines, there's alternative wines. So I had to
out of those 14 brands, they all had multiple SKUs within them. So you probably were well over 100 products. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's a perfect example. My alcohol removed wine, Prima Pave, has 4 SKUs. Just that one alcohol removed wine. And then there's the alternative. And then there's, with spirits, for example, there's a difference between 1-for-1 replacements and botanical alternatives. So that's 2 different with multiple SKUs and different flavor profiles and different cocktails that they can make, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, there's some that are just straight elixirs and mixers, and then some that are a pre-mixed, concoction, stuff like that. Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize too, and when you get into the NA beer space, the entire process of producing the beer specifically changed. Like I tell people a lot of times, for me, that was what helped me get sober, was when the beers finally tasted good. And it wasn't just drinking O'Doul's every time that I wanted to go out somewhere. And like, even this past weekend I was in Ohio and all they had was Budweiser Zero. And that was actually more enjoyable than regular Budweiser.
I was very surprised because I'm not typically a Budweiser fan.
I'm not either, yeah.
And the Bud Zero, I was like, I can drink this.
I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a 12-pack home throughout the course of the weekend.
I really have, I've become like an NA beer person. I love the NA beers.
Yeah, when I quit December 26th and started my sobriety journey, it was rough because of that, because the products weren't there. And then I started meeting different people. And when I reached out for the podcast is when it really accelerated, because I was meeting the manufacturers. So that's when I met Rebecca and met a bunch of other people. And then I started trying their products. And that, I've told them this personally with Rudy over at Parch and them, that their products are what kept me sober through that first year. And just really, I've had 3 one-night relapses since then, and they're all very isolated instances. And I'm not a person that counts the numbers as a cumulative thing. I count the day as the day. So that I grabbed that from AA, where I can only control what happens today. So I don't look at my sobriety as it's 700 days and I start back at 0 if I relapse. I'm more or less as long as I can consistently move forward better than the day before, I'm good to go.
I love that. That's a wonderful perspective.
I think a lot of people, I've sat in those meetings and I've been in outpatient rehabs and stuff like that. And I've watched, as well as myself, people lose more time recuperating from a relapse than actually just moving forward with their life the next morning. I feel like a lot of people will lose months and years beating themselves up and abusing themselves, or being abused by those around them because they failed. And I've just really had in the past year and a half, I put a 12-hour policy on my sourdough. And I'm I'll only be in self-pity mode for 12 hours. I'll allow myself a night, basically, is what I tell myself. But then the next morning, fuck it. I'm it's over.
Yeah. I mean, holding ourselves in that, we need to give ourselves more self-compassion, and it's not going to do us any good whatsoever to keep ourselves in a sympathetic state where our nervous system is locked down and our cortisol levels are higher and we can't function. That's just plain dumb. You know what I mean?
And it's sometimes it can be more unhealthy than the drinking.
Oh, yes.
Carrying that stress and that guilt and that shame, sometimes from a biological standpoint, and anecdotally for me, I know certain moments where I was putting more stress and more abuse to myself than if I would have went on a bender. Because at least during the bender, I was happy. It might have been abusing myself, but my mental state was happy. So it was a balance of that. But I want to go back to yours too, and I want to talk a little bit about, for you, especially the distribution. You mentioned your history in the military and stuff like that. Talk to me a little bit about, take me back to high school, and let's say, I say this sometimes, like turning the cap and gown, if the story needs to go prior to that to make context, then go prior to that. But kind of, use that as a starting point. And let's dive into your story.
Oh my, yeah, okay.
You don't have to. You can share whatever you want. Nothing's live, and if anything you say at any point, just be like, hey, cut that part out or anything like that. No worries at all. So.
No, I am an open book. Literally, I am in the process, and I've already written my memoir, but I'm writing the book format version of my memoir. So all of this is I am actually trying to get out into the world. So yeah. And that is what I do. With the biggest part of the Caim Circle is I have a holistic memoir writing program that helps people uncover their limiting beliefs in mind, body, and relationships. So mind, body, love, and see for themselves through their story by going back into their story and uncovering the truth of it, but then holistically being able to process it. Because that's the issue, right? Is we can be aware all day of what happened to us. But unless we actually let our nervous systems process it, trauma, the basic definition of trauma is something that comes at you too fast, too soon for your body to handle. And so if we have all of this pent up trauma still in our bodies unprocessed, we're never going to be able to truly take the steps forward in our life that we want. So yeah, I'm happy to go back into my story. I'm an Indiana girl. I grew up in a very small town in northern Indiana, even though most of my family is actually from southern Indiana. But so I was kind of back and forth, but all over Indiana. And I had two parents who were heavy equipment construction workers, very blue collar farmers, construction workers, teachers, nurses, practical jobs, right? This is what you do to make the American dream come true. You work hard and then you die. That was like the biggest limiting belief for me. Life's a bitch and then you die. And that was kind of what was ingrained in me, was to work hard. So, I mean, I had my first paying job when I was 8, picking blueberries and cherries on a farm. I started shoveling out horse stalls and taking care of horses, farm work, construction work, even when I was 14. Just became a jack of all trades very early on, because I had a mother who was a heavy equipment construction worker, and she rode a Harley, and she was a 4th degree black belt. And then she put on red lipstick and did her nails and was my mother. So I had this viewpoint of this idealized view of what a woman should be, right? You have to do it all. You have to take on the world and accomplish everything. And if you, even if you do, it's not enough. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so, but when I was in about 2nd grade, I had a teacher that basically convinced me that I was stupid. I really took it to heart. I thought that I was not an intelligent person. I thought I was creative, innovative, and hardworking. If you gave me a shovel, I was going to get it done. And so very early on, I decided I was not going to go to college. That's just not who I was as a person. I'm not equipped to use my brain. And so I was like, I'm just going to join the military. People will be proud of me. I will serve my country, all of that kind of thing. And I took all of that, drive into, I joined the Air Force. I was gone 2 weeks after high school. So barely 18. I joined the Air Force, and I thought that I was basically kind of running away from Indiana and that life. I thought I was going to see the world and all those things that a lot of people think when they join the service. But at the same time, there was also a part of me. I grew up with a grandmother that was very intelligent and a very big reader. And she had all the National Geographics, like all of them, like shelves and shelves and shelves. And I remember looking at them, and there was a part of me, and I was like the editor-in-chief of our creative writing team in high school. I was really into writing. I've been writing since I could hold a pen. And so there was a part of me that I didn't yet have the self-worth or the belief in myself to take on that. And in my mind, I'm still thinking that's not practical. You need to do work. You don't get to do what you want. You have to go and do work. So there is this percolating, right? This idea of being a creative writer and writing for National Geographic and all the things. And you'll see how it all plays out. But I joined the Air Force, and the job that I got was it was TMO, the Traffic Management Office, which is basically distribution, logistics, and the movement of all the people, products. I mean, everything from paper to household goods to, I was stationed out in Montana, and one of the biggest things that we dealt with were hazardous materials for missiles. So I was missile components, and I was the one figuring out what carriers were going to pick up these items and ship them from here to there, and the logistics side of traffic management in the Air Force. And then I was under the TMO umbrella, like there is household goods and PCSing, so just helping people deploy, just getting their tickets to deploy, moving their families from place to place and all their household goods. And then there's the inbound, outbound freight, and then the paperwork. And so all the things is basically like a very glorified UPS airport thing.
Very extremely detail oriented.
Right. Yeah. So that's the world I entered into, and very quickly, finally the light bulb came on. I'm like, if I can do this, I must not be too stupid. Maybe I have a brain. And because I was so scared of failing out that I actually studied and worked hard, and I was top of my class, and I was getting hundreds, and then I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And so, but anyhow, I was also dealing with all the other female things, and I wanted to be a mom, and also was looking for a partner and looking for love and all of that. So I had signed up for a 4-year enlistment, but by the end of that 4-year enlistment, actually right at the end of it, I had come back from a 6-month tour in Iraq, and almost immediately got pregnant, got married, and ended my enlistment with my maternity leave. So while I was pregnant, they were trying to plan my next deployment, and I was like, I'm not leaving this baby. So I just was like, all right, I guess that part is over. And my new husband at the time stayed in, and I became the stay-at-home mom, and I transitioned. And unfortunately, this is a big thing with a lot of moms, when you become mom, it's like I was no longer Jessa. I was just mom, and you kind of lose your identity. And I wasn't bringing in money. So that ingrained part of me that was saying, you need to work hard. That's the biggest goal in life, is work hard, work hard, work hard. I was like not doing enough as a stay-at-home mom. So I was always trying to do all these other little things to, So I was, I would take my kids to the YMCA so I could work at the YMCA and have them and nanny another kid at the same time. And she was coming too. Like I always had to do multiple things to feel self-worth. And so my ex-husband now, my husband at the time was, he was deployed over and over and over and over. And the 12 years of our marriage, he was gone for over 6 of them. Accumulative. And so I was basically a not stay at home, single mom, not single mom. It was like I was always in this, I don't even know, and that limbo has followed me to today. And I think from what I have found out and figured out for myself is that what you normalize in your nervous system will stay until you change you have to change your baseline. Whatever you want to be your normal, you have to make your normal. And so my normal was chaos and confusion and uncertainty and where am I going next and what am I doing? And that has stayed. And so I'm slowly rewriting my script. But anyhow, we went from Montana to Texas to Indiana to North Carolina. And finally, it was right around that time that I decided, you know what? The kids are all old enough. They're going to school. I have my GI Bill. It's going to expire. You have to use it within a time frame, or you did then. And so I was like, I'm going to try to I'm going to try to go to school. And I did the whole thing where I was like, well, I should do the practical thing. And I tried to get the logistics degree. And then I thought maybe business management. And then I was just like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. Finally landed on an English degree and a creative writing degree. And I was like, I'm going to try to be a writer. I'm going to try to follow my heart and lean into what I love. And so, but at the same time, when all that was happening, I got pushed into a creative nonfiction class, which was where I learned the art of memoir. And I started writing these small little essays of memoir, like of my deployment. The first thing I ever had published was my deployment essay. And as I was writing it, I was able to see my life from a different perspective. I was kind of like looking down on it like a movie. And I was like having all these epiphanies. No wonder I thought like that. And you know what I mean? You just have all these aha moments as you're writing out your story and seeing it from a different perspective. Because so often we just let the story play over and over and over in our mind, right? And it just loops. But most of the time when we don't have the right information and when you're writing it, especially like a memoir where you need detail, I needed to do research. I had to relook up things. Was like, what was that called again? And who was that person? And what was the uniform name? And all these things that really helped me clarify and figure out so much. And so at the end of that, I was finding out so much about myself, right? I was uncovering all of these things and realizing how miserable and unhappy I had been, basically. And it led to my divorce, basically. But when that big D word came up, I was like, how did I get here? What in the world am I doing? Am I really sure that I want to do this? I can't believe that I didn't think I would ever get a divorce. Like you don't get married thinking that it would end. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to write our story. And that's, I'm going to use what I have learned about memoir writing, and I'm going to write our relationship. And that'll help me see for sure, am I doing the right thing? So I was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of questioning myself, right? And what I learned from writing that story was, girl, you have no self-worth. And then I was like, well, shit. Where did that come from? How do I figure out how that even got built? And that's how I had to start at the beginning of my story, to go all the way back into the generational trauma, uncover not just my mother's story, but my grandmother's story, so that I could uncover the truth. And that led me to get my master's degree and all the things, and to create the programs that I did, and it led me to today, honestly. And
you're right. Everything is back to that string.
Yeah.
Now that you've told me your story, and I know there's a lot more to it, but at least what you've shared so far is everything makes sense, that what you're doing right now. And I'm shocked in a great way about, like, there's a lot of times where I'll talk to people who tell a similar story, but the story ends there.
Mm.
And it's the exact opposite with you.
Oh,
you have a whole new book. You have a whole new book you're writing. And I really, like, as you're telling me this story, my visual was totally of you putting a book on a shelf to collect dust while you go back to your desk and start writing a brand new book. And like, that was what went through my head the whole time you were talking, and it totally made sense, because it's like, and it's not even a situation where you're like, oh, where do I start? Like, you're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, you're at a place now where it's like, not where do you go or how do you do it? It's just, now you're at how big can I scale this? Like, you have the infrastructure, you have all the services, everything you've shared is so aligned with your passion. And that's what makes you so great to be the person to run that, because you're not doing it because you just went to a yoga training for 2 years or 6 weeks or whatever. You might have done that, but that's not what your drive was for it. And you're not going to it because creative writing is something you really loved in college. Creative writing is your story. It's your outlet. It's your medium. Yoga is your expressive medium. And like, that's like, for me personally, like, I can tell when I listen to your podcast and when I listen to your videos, you're not regurgitating something you learned from somebody else's podcast. You're speaking your story and you're speaking your truth. And every advice you give is advice based on your anecdotal experience. And honestly, it's fucking better than anything any book can give, because it's like, everybody that writes a book, they're writing a book, and your book is going to be about your story. But you know what I'm trying to say is that a lot of those other books are just regurgitations of somebody else's stuff, or it's like directives, and it's not human and it's not experiential. And I didn't mean to stop you, but at the same time, I just needed to tell you that, like, you have really taken that self-doubt and just, like, fucking crushed it.
Well, I appreciate that.
And you're gonna have those moments. I mean, we've done a few things, like, we've kind of conversed offline about a few things of doubt about both of us. And it's at the same time, it's like fucking temporary.
Yeah.
It's temporary self-doubt. It's not, and I'm going to speak from my experience, it's not 4 months in a bed, debilitating depression, self-doubt. I've been there.
Yeah.
And it's not that. And that's why, like, I laugh at it every morning. Like, I would flick it off my shoulder. I'm like, fuck it. You know, like I tell people, I'm like, I already.
That's that's the beauty of having experienced that, knowing the dark.
Yeah.
Knowing the dark so that you also know the light. That's, and you have to experience failure. Failure is a win. Failure is the ability to say, okay, that's not it. Let's try this now. And to change your mindset, to say, I'm not going to be ruled by fear. I'm going to move forward with love. And I appreciate everything you said, because my number one core value, like the core value I grew up with, hard work. The core value I hold now, authenticity. how can I show? There is only one me, only one you. You are the first you and the only you that will ever walk this planet. And there is only one me that will ever be. Someone could come up and say the exact same thing as me and it would be different. There is only one you. So constantly trying to pull from somebody else, learn, grow, experience, but everything that you're learning from that person or that experience is a different thing in you already than what it was that they gave.
It's I went back to like when I was listening to the episode with you and your mom talking, and like I've told a couple people so far like how incredible of an episode it is and how everybody needs to listen to it, because my parents listen, and I'll warn them, I guess, on camera that this is going to happen now that I've seen yours, and they're going to shit their pants as they hear this while they're driving somewhere right now, or whatever they listen. But you going and telling a story from her lens and your lens simultaneously, and giving context to people today of what were the social, economic, and technological parts of society at that time. It's truly something. Even somebody that lived through that, I think we're about the same age by what I'm like by that. Even me, as someone was also in that state and under it just took me back and like gave me such a feeling like of like. I'll be honest, like we harp on our parents a lot, but like I've done my own things to make me feel like a completely shit parent. And my kids listen to this, and and they know I'm always trying, you know what I mean? And I always love them, and I screw up a lot, and I also win a lot. And that's what people need to understand is, in order to win a lot, you have to take a lot of risks. So you have to be comfortable with the losses, because not everything's a win.
No, absolutely.
And when you can still pursue, and what I'm trying to go back to is also like, I look sometimes at my parents and judgmentally, like, why do they do this or why do they do that? And then I look at like where their life was and what their context was and their lens was, and it was completely different than mine is. And my mom said something to me a few months ago, or maybe I don't remember now, and it was a very freeing thing for me. And it was because they grew up, they met when they were 7, their driveways met at the development. They've been together ever since. Like it's fucking what's the guy that used to paint the pictures of the perfect homes and all that stuff. Like it's like like that's what it was. You know what I mean? And I love that for them, and I love that they had that, and I love that they still have that. She made a comment to me that was like, you know your life doesn't have to be like everybody else's, right? It can be yours. And I always, it was until that one moment that she actually freed me from the driving factor that all I wanted what they had. I always wanted that. And all right, I've never shared this, but it was what drove certain early relationships in my life, including my kid's mother. We rushed into something because we wanted something that our parents had.
Yeah.
And different times, different relationships I've had over, whether it be dating or whatever else, I went too far, and not in a way of too far emotionally. Like I wanted real commitments, real fast, like it was to my life. And I want to hop off the soapbox for a second, but I wanted to kind of jump back into you and say, like, when I harp on my parents, I look back and it's like, we have no excuse for not knowing what to do as a parent today, because we have all the resources at our fingertips. And when you're talking about, when your mom was talking about how she didn't have anybody with like-minded, she had to go to the library, and it was just that book. And then from there, it led to the 150 books. That was like, yeah, like if you really wanted to go outside of your realm, it was a real intentional thing to be different than everybody else.
Yeah.
Then now it's different, and now it's more accepted, and it's more open, and it's more whatever. But like, I guess I kind of in the moment after seeing that episode, like I'm gonna give my parents a break. You know what I mean? Like I think I put them through enough, and at the same time, like, yeah, I want to thank you for that, because I don't think enough people. Everybody needs to go to your podcast and listen to your stories that are there right now. Not only your stories, but I'm going to bring it back to the present too, is that the way that you package a process and flow, I don't know if it's intentional or not. And if it isn't intentional, like you have a real gift.
I
Like,
just I'm just talking. I have no. I just show up.
And that's even better because, like, I don't have a script for this. Like, I hop on camera with everybody, just like I am with you. Yeah. And actually, you and I talked way more in advance than anybody else that I've ever brought on camera for this. Oh. And that's it's everybody's going to have their different ways of doing this, and I want people to follow what you're doing. I want people to follow both the podcast as well as the Substack, as well as everything else, because you have some powerful stories in your memoirs too. And I think that along with what I was saying about the way you present things, you put an Audible feature on your memoirs, and oh my God, it changed my entire experience of being on somebody's personal memoirs website. Like to read the memoir and have you passionately telling this, you have a full sensory experience that you're piecing together. And I really appreciate the work that you're putting into that sensory experience for your audience.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I truly am just showing up. Like I've accepted myself as this kind of disorganized person. I'm organized chaos, if you will. And I don't, I'm never going to be a program manager. I'm never going to be an editor. I'm a writer, but I am not an editor. I will show up. I will just pour myself out. But with what you do with the contents after they're poured out is up to you. I'm grateful that my authenticity is pulling through. Because if anything now, we're in information overload. Where there wasn't enough, where we were just like pulling off the encyclopedias and trying to find whatever what. Now it's like, what is real, what is not real, AI, what I mean, all these things, and it's too much. And deciphering what to take in and what not to. And so it's getting very, very important, especially for me, to show up as real as possible. Like, I'm a weirdo. I'm okay with it. I like what I like and don't what I don't. And I'm okay with this. And you should be too, and stop holding on to this stress in your body of trying to be something. Just be and breathe and allow yourself to have a human experience that isn't riddled with constant drive to accomplish, and we can just connect with authenticity, and the world, what it needs now. Right?
People are looking for it. Like this morning, for example, on YouTube Insights. So on YouTube, you can go to Creator Insights in the back and see what people are searching. And you can look at what trends they're searching, what phrases they're searching. But on the next spot, it's for content gaps. So every morning I look at the content gaps of YouTube and I say, okay, what are people searching but is not being provided for them upon the search that they're happy with? Meaning they searched it and they didn't like what they saw, so they moved on to another search. They never clicked anything or clicked minimal. Today's was spiritual mindset growth. The number one thing searched on YouTube today is spiritual mindset or spiritual growth mindset or spiritual mindset growth. Those three words are what's being searched today. And it is a content gap.
That gives me so much hope.
I didn't text this to you earlier because I wanted to share it with you today. Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
I wanted to tell you that the audience is there. You just once the algorithm sees what you're doing and the algorithm puts you in front of them, and it's a volume game for them. So the more volume you put out, and today was perfect, you're putting out 3. If you spread that out over, you do something each day,
Mm.
It will kick you up in that algorithm. And I'm telling you, like, they're searching for your stuff, and that's what it needs to have. Like, there's a couple scenarios like on that, because for me personally, I'm telling anybody that's listening to this, I'm telling them personally, I personally listened to your podcast, not in preparation for this. Like, I personally watched the episode with your mother. Like, it was not in preparation for this. And I want to talk a little bit about, we have a little bit more time here. I want to talk about your current projects you're working on this summer, because now's an opportunity, and I want to get this out as soon as possible so it's not after this upcoming next few weeks. So walk me through the whirlwind that you have going on, and why whirlwind, I don't mean it as a negative way. I can already tell that we're lock in step with our brains. Organized. When you said organized chaos, I was like, well, we're just, that's it. We're good. Because I used to keep a poster when I was in the corporate world. I was a vice president of a beer wholesaler. And behind my desk, it was a picture of it was Albert Einstein and his quote. And it was an empty desk is an empty mind.
Oh, I love that.
People would always fuck with me because my desk was always a mess and my office was always just atrocious a mess. And I was always like, I always just point at the sign and be like, hey, he had it right. So I must be trying.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, an empty desk is an empty mind. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing currently, what you have going on. We'll call it a road show. And then kind of where are you, what's your plans throughout it? And I know you have all kinds of different things. You got yoga, creative writing, kind of let people know that if they're out in Indiana, if they're out in any of the areas you're going in, what types of events are happening and how the public can connect with you.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. So starting this weekend in Nashville, Tennessee, at the non-alcoholic bottle shop called Killjoy, which is a really fun name. There is a fantastic little bottle shop in Nashville that super quirky, super fun, and they're having a market where you can go in and taste and try a whole bunch of their products for free. So you can go in and taste a whole bunch of stuff before you purchase, right? And get those sips on lips. And I'm taking Untoxicated, and I have my partner, Catherine, who lives there. She and I are setting up 2 tables with multiple brands. We were hoping for 6, but we got 5. And so we have a spirit, we have a functional, we have a wine, we have a ready to drink functional product. So we have all the bitters. So you can come to our table, and not only will you get to taste and try multiple brands, but you get a one-of-a-kind education, right? I'm going to be able to tell you what is going on with these products, especially the functional ones where you're like, what is this going to do? What does functional mean? What is this adaptogen for? What is this nootropic, et cetera, et cetera? I'm there to really relay that information and to help you understand how to use these products. And on the podcast, I am coming out with a few more episodes that kind of dive deeper into the products themselves, because I know so many people are interested in, like, what in the heck is ashwagandha?
Too much. And this is me speaking specifically of like 20 years in the business, being in the media of the alcohol industry. I literally was, if you type in the beer ace, you'll see me from like 20 years ago doing on-camera episodes and tasting reviews and all this stuff. And I was like 100% where you're going. And I'm still that way because there's too many reviews online where people spew out their opinions. And then everybody else says, oh, I don't like that because Johnny didn't like it or he gave it a 4. And I've always been from the beginning. I've never done that. And that's why I tell people, if you go in any of my history, you won't see me going, this IPA smells like this and it tastes like a cat piss with a taste of a barn door, and the horse blanket in the back end and the tannins are, it's none of that. And I love that and I participate in that and I can regurgitate it through and through because I studied it. I have all the books to prove it. But I don't believe it's the way that products should be projected to the public in a mass scale because it's pretentious and it's exclusive. And I think that there's a way that we need to bring the public in to make them see that it's not as pretentious as they think. We just really get into it. And once they come inside, they'll get into it as well. And it's not as pretentious as they think it is. That's the way that I love things that are being presented. I love your style because you're teaching them about the product as opposed to what you think of the product.
Yes, I'm just telling you what the ingredients are, what those ingredients may or may not do for you. And you take that information. If you like hibiscus, okay, then maybe you'll like that. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I like this one. I absolutely do say, here are my favorites.
Yep.
But that's my favorite.
Yes.
That doesn't have anything to do, like, Parch, for example. When I share Parch, I talk about, like, if you like juicy, if you like smoky, if you like citrus, here, like, those are the bold flavor aspects. But here are the ingredients. And I talk about the ingredients and what the proprietary blend of adaptogens do for your body. And then I typically, especially with their spiced Piñarita, I say, do you like smoky? You have to like, if you were you a mezcal drinker? You know what I mean? If not, okay, well, let's start with the Paloma and work our way. You know what I mean? I'm smart enough to have, like,
you think, like, people don't think that way with non-alcoholics, though. They forget the journey, like how you got to go light to dark and kind of work your way. If you've not been in there, you don't jump into level 6. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
There's a product tasting journey as well you got to go on.
Right. Yes, 100%. And so, yeah, I'm going to be there in Nashville teaching. And then that's Saturday. And on Sunday, I'm actually going to put on my Caim hat and go in, and I'm teaching a meditation class. And this is all about, I'm a trauma-informed yoga teacher, and I help people really, my goal is to help you regulate your nervous system and to take away tools that you can use every day for yourself. And a lot of people have this really hard time with meditation, and I make it easy. Like, I even have a walking meditation on YouTube. Just put it in your earbuds and go for a walk, and you can.
Anybody here? Yeah, if anybody here's been in yoga, and I'm going to speak for myself, that struggles during the meditation part, which is me. That's another reason why I've been pushing you, because yours is, I don't know, it's your tone, it's your tempo, it's everything you got going on, but it keeps me focused and I don't divert my attention during meditation. Like, I mean, I've tried a lot.
And that's the thing with meditation is you have to, I mean, it's distraction. And that's why there's mantras and there's breathing techniques, and there's someone like me who can talk you through the process. Listen to me, and it's a beautiful experience. But yeah, so I'm going to do meditation and mimosas. We're going to have some mimosas, alcohol-free, with my brand Prima Pave. And yeah, it's just going to be like a fun little thing. And then I'm heading over to Charleston, South Carolina, and I'm back to work for a little bit with Sèchey, my favorite bottle shop, my original. Always going to be a Sèchey girl. But I'm helping them, and we were talking about wholesale, but we're testing the waters with some wholesale opportunities, see how that goes. And I'm really excited to kind of be back over there and to be working with them again, and going to be trying for some sales for some of the brands, getting out into the the hospitality industry. Basically, is going around having people taste and try products, both from Sèchey. All of my products and my portfolio are at Sèchey, so it's, like, I can help them by steering them right into the store, that kind of thing. It's a win-win for everybody. But then I'm only there for a week, and I'm heading to Indiana, and there are some amazing non-alcoholic bottle shops in Indiana. So if you are in or around Indiana and you don't know about them yet, there's two big ones. Generation NA, which is right there by Purdue, in Lafayette, Indiana. Small little town, Indiana. This amazing bottle shop that has, your mind would be blown, Nate. If you ever get to Indiana, go there, because they have the best beer. Like that's their number one seller. They have walls of different craft beers from all different brands. They also have a huge CBD THC selection.
Nice.
But I'm going to be representing my brand Amethyst, which is an NA spirit. And while I'm there, we're going to do a tasting, and then we're doing a slushy bar with their new watermelon lime flavor. So we're going to just a lot of fun there. 2 different on a Thursday and on Saturday. I'll be there. And on Friday, I'm going to be at Lauren's Alchohol-Free, which is in Carmel, Indiana, which is just north of Indianapolis. And they are very elegant, very elevated, just a lovely bottle shop. And I'm teaching a yoga class. So I'm going to go in there, teach a yoga class, and then we're going to be having cocktails and doing that, which is... it's just combining all of the things I love, right?
That's exactly it. So over the next 2 weeks, there's 3 separate markets, if anybody's listening, that they can reach out and they can connect with you through Instagram, through LinkedIn, through all the different mediums, through your YouTube, and we'll post everything in the description. I'm committing to you, because you're going this weekend, I will have this will be published tomorrow. So this episode on video and audio will go out tomorrow. That's my commitment to you tonight. Because I want to get this information out there, because I think it's so cool what you're doing. I think it's so cool that you go out on the road and do it, because that's something that a lot of people don't. They stay within their comfort zones, and then they only have the same crowd that goes to the same events and all this other stuff. And it's like, I think what you're doing is awesome. I think you need to keep doing what you're doing. I know you don't need validation from anybody else. I just feel the need to say it to people. I told you, I'm done being silent and just letting people live their life. If they're doing badass things, I'm going to tell them they're badass.
I love that. We need more of that positivity.
Yep, so. Exactly. Well, hey, I will close out with this, but tonight I'm going to edit this episode. This episode will go out tomorrow, and I will put up all your handles and everything like that, so everybody can follow you and tag along and follow the journey. I'm sure you'll post random photos and things like that along the way over the next few weeks.
Oh yeah, my story is crazy on Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm always doing wild things in my stories. So.
Absolutely. Jessa, thank you so much for taking the time today. And I know it was kind of last minute, but I really wanted to get your story out there. We had such an amazing pre-interview, and life had gotten away from us. And I'm glad that things have the dust has settled for at least temporarily for a few days before you head out again. So I want to send everybody out there, and thanks again for your time. And I look forward to many more conversations with you. This isn't our last convo.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Nate. It was an honor. Yeah.
Enjoy your day.
You too.
If you have a great story or know someone that does, check out our website at thefreemindpodcast.com and submit your story today or nominate a friend. Thanks. Have a great day, everybody. Keep listening.